Welcome to Money Convos, where we discuss personal finance and investment tips. We're committed to helping people create wealth and achieve financial freedom. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. All right then, let's head into today's conversation.
Hey, get them. How are you?
I'm good. Oh, yourself?
I'm okay. I'm all right. Is it still raining?
Oh no. That was very early in the morning. The little, but it was not even very intense like that. It was just normal levels.
Normal showers of blessings.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a good one. All right. I see. Well, hello to everyone who's tuning in to listen to today's conversation. Even if you are listening in later, glad to have you listening in. So today's conversation, I'm not saying them. This one here is very close to your heart because, you've been advocating for it for a minute. So how about I let you do the introduction? What are we going to talk about and why does it matter?
Okay, so basically today we are talking about borrowed future. I think I'll pin the link and the space so that those who are, and also tweet it so that those who are interested can watch it later. It basically talks about the dark side of the student loan industry. It's mainly based on the American landscape. Okay, but we thought that it is an important thing to discuss and to talk about because increasingly tertiary education is getting expensive. So everyone needs to be able to start thinking about how to fund this. So we are discussing this because it is an important aspect of everybody's conversation to know about how to fund tertiary education. And then also, I think gradually we might end up getting to that point here in Ghana if things continue the way they are. I did some small digging and reading. I realized that quite a number of people are on the Ghana Student Loan Trust Scheme too. So I thought it was instructive that this conversation is going to be interesting for us to discuss and for us to explore all the nitty-gritties about it and also be able to look at it that if people even need to get into student debt, what they need to look out for and how to read between the lines so that they don't fall victims or be exploited, and also how to generally be proper borrowers, if I should say so. So that's my brief introduction. I don't know if it was that brief.
Yeah, it was up. So I guess what you did not add on is it's by our favorite people, the Dave Ramsey people, from the Ramsey Show. So they did a documentary on student loans in the US. And even though it's for a US context, I think it's still instructive to us. I like that you looked it up and you saw that people in Ghana are taking the student loans. And it's something that I was surprised about some years ago, maybe 5 years ago, when I heard about in my office space, people were something came up about salaries and liens on people's salaries, and the CEO mentioned that actually they keep getting requests from banks to verify people's salaries because people are going to do masters to fund those masters. They are taking personal loans from banks, and the banks would want to verify their salaries and ask the employer if they can set aside the money for them right out of their paycheck to keep the bank secure. So it's something that's coming up. And interesting conversation is when the CEO was talking about this. No, I don't quite recall if it was one-on-one or in a group setting, but he was saying, I'm the one hiring you. You need to go and get this master's. I'm not going to increase your salary. Right. So it's just one of the things that we need to think about. In previous weeks, we had a conversation about formal education. If you missed that, please go check us out on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search for Money Convos. you would see the conversations we've had in recent weeks about increasing our capacity through formal education, continuous professional learning, and even reading wide. We started off with the mindset thing, no excuses, right? So those conversations are really good to help sharpen our tools and our income generation capacity. All right. So when we're talking about those, we talked about the importance of formal education. And for certain people, depending on what you're going to do, a master's degree will be even more relevant. So it's not for everybody, but if you know it's going to be important for you and your career, then you need to do it right. Another reason why this conversation would be important is that a lot of us young people in Ghana are considering moving abroad for education. Ghanaians have always been going abroad for education. Quite often, people used to go and do a master's and come back. Now, people are going to do master's, and then because of the cost involved, they are trying to stay there to find jobs, to be able to pay off the loans that they've taken. Because not every school offers so generous scholarships, so they have to find a way to fund it. The expenses are too high and salaries not too much that companies back in Ghana would sponsor it. I know maybe 20 years ago, some companies in Ghana would actually sponsor you to go and do a master's abroad and come back and be bonded to them for like 3 or 4 years. But these days, that's not happening. So people are thinking about how to fund their education. Even thinking about professional examinations. Take the CFA, for example. Your first crack at the CFA would probably set you back $1,500 or more dollars. So where you're going to get that money from, you have to fund it one way or the other. So it's important. Another aspect is as we are going abroad and doing student loans in dollars or in foreign countries, we also need to understand the landscape of credit in other countries. It's a bit different from Ghana, actually quite different from Ghana. So watching this documentary would give you a sneak peek at one aspect of credit in the US. And something that really hits me is how it's normal. A lot of the people in the documentary were saying, well, it's normal. You borrow till you die, right? So how do we break that cycle? Does it need to be that way? Is it bad? Is it good? We're going to get into all of that in today's conversation, but especially for people who've left Ghana to pursue school, you're truly myself, I'm included in that, staring at huge student loans as I've graduated. And people thinking about going to school. I mentioned last week that a friend called me and we're discussing financing, his option for financing. So these are important conversations we should have. All right, let's do a quick check on on Dennis. Dennis, how are you doing?
Hi, Elikem. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. Today, no one is disturbing you. No one is keeping you.
No one has ever disturbed me.
Hey. And there is that so.
I said, I've missed the previous session, so let me come and visit. And the topic is of interest to me. You see, so that's why I'm here. No one has been bothering me.
Then why have you been missing the previous sessions?
This is town back here.
We are on the roadside here. Yeah, okay, all right. But yeah, somebody of your demographics, an iron boy like yourself, fresh out of school, thinking about a master's program, this is a good conversation. Okay, so let's get into it. School loans, right? Taking on debt for as a student, so student loans. The question really starts from why you are taking the loan. And the question I would ask is, what does it take to be successful? And is school the only way to be successful? Eden, you want to take a stab at this?
Yeah, Elikem. So this question is quite interesting. And I think it's also, as part of the question, I would ask that it all depends on I would say that it all depends on what you deem as success. So that alone in itself, it's a main determinant and determine what will help you or what is going to drive you or what does it take to be successful. But I think generally, I mean, in most people's minds, we have something that comes to our mind when we think about success. And I don't think school is the only way to be successful. Yeah, in actual fact, there are a lot of people who have not really gone through school who have been successful there are some people who didn't get the opportunity that maybe some of us have, and probably are even more successful than we are. But then I will not discount and talk about, or not discount, or I will not reduce the importance of schooling or getting an education in general, because even though I have said in the previous statement that people are there who have not gone to school that are successful. If you look out there and you throw, or you take a sample of generally successful people, you would realize that a lot of them probably have a kind of education or a kind of amount that a kind of schooling that they have had. So it's very, very important that we place the conversation in a very right context, because schooling alone, yes, will not make you successful, but there's so much evidence out there to show that a lot of people who are successful have gone through school. So it is very, very important. But for people who are unfortunate not to have had an education, that is not a deal breaker in a certain sense. Yeah, that was what I would say.
Yeah, I get you. It's good. We need to first understand what success is, define what success is for us. So if your idea of success is to be a business person selling a particular thing, if you don't need a master's degree to sell it, why do you need a master's degree in the first place, right? So it's all about your end goal. Also, I think for me, I like to think that people should at least do secondary school. That one is basic. If possible, do university, or these days, find a trade that would make your hand, that would make you be able to use your hand, use certain skills. All right. Like, don't just end at secondary and just go do something. Like, there has to be a certain knowledge base for whatever career you want to get into. And beyond that, it's all very specific in terms of where you end up, right? So you need to keep it that thought. It's not the only way to be successful. Getting a master's, getting a PhD is not the only way to be successful. Okay, great. And also, we also need to make a distinction about education and schooling, right? You don't have to go to school to get an education. Some people's education is by they want to get into a trade. They have an uncle who's in that trade already. They go and spend a lot of time working under their uncle. That's getting an education, getting the knowledge, the skills. You don't necessarily have to pay school fees for that, right? So we need to be clear on that. Education is more important than schooling, because people just go to school and some don't even learn so much. Okay. Now, the student parts have been covered. Now let's talk about the loans part, because we are talking about student loans. Okay. So the loan side too, is there such a thing as good debt versus bad debt? And would we say student loans are good debt under all circumstances, or which circumstances will it be good? Adam, any thoughts?
Okay. Now, because I have binge listened to Dave Ramsey, my answer to this question is so different from what it would have been probably last year. So, because it looks like now listening to Dave Ramsey, my mind has come to realize that, look, all debt is bad. Even though, honestly speaking, I tilt more towards that, okay, for some people, the schooling or an educational loan might not be a bad decision, provided they have made all the, like, you've asked all the right questions, you've seen the trajectory that you would land in should you take this education. You've asked yourself whether, okay, is that the only, maybe I want to become a doctor, so it means that I must necessarily go through medical school, but I don't have the funds to go through medical school. And maybe the only way to do that probably is to take a student loan. Yeah, like those kinds of things. And then probably the amounts you are taking for the student loan, if I go to school and I complete and I start my work, probably within maybe 1 or 2 or so years, I can pay it off quickly and all of that. Like, I mean, you've covered all the basics it's one area, generally I'm debt averse, but it's one area I can tilt in, even though I would want that to be the last resort, like when you have tried to cover up all other options, yes, then and those other options cannot work, or it's part of a mix of other alternatives that you are using. Maybe it is the smallest part of the of a general mix, but maybe I would generally not be comfortable with an all-out, like exclusively funding your education through student loan, but maybe it's being part of other measures that you have combined, then I think it will make sense to me, and I would say it is good debt. But else, I generally I'm not too debt friendly. And unfortunately, it has gotten worse after how many hours of Ramsey show. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. And I get the risk aversion or the loan aversion. For me, I would offer a different perspective, slightly different. How would I assess if something is good debt? One, it's for an absolutely important purchase, not a frivolous purchase. It's not, I want to buy a new watch, I want to buy a new bag. You get the idea. So one, it's important. Two, the likelihood of me saving up for it before the purchase, is very low. For example, buying a house. All right. How many of us can afford to save up all the money we need to buy a house? Straight up. We in Ghana typically do that by buying one cement bag at a time, a few iron rods every now and then. So in that way, a lot of people do the savings. But look at how long it takes. And while we do that, we are locking up capital in something that we can't take as collateral, like bare land versus uncompleted building. I think the bare land will be more liquid than the uncompleted building, right? And so we can even collateralize that, go and use the money for something else, right? So that's the second criteria. I can't save up for it realistically in a timely fashion. And thirdly, this one may be kind of not so strong a reason, but taking advantage of an opportunity. So for me, now tying it back into this student loan thing, it comes to what's your definition of success, right? There's the average thing. Okay, if you want an education, you want an okay job, you'll be fine. There's one way to go about it. And then take me for example, when I said, you know what, I feel like I'm one of the best there is. I want to rub shoulders with the best of the best. I want to be a Fortune 500 CEO, and I want to give myself the best opportunity to do that. And I chart my career path and I say, okay, I need to get into what will improve my odds? An Ivy League education, working for a top 3 consulting firm. And those top 3 consulting firms, at the time I was applying, they hired from a very specific group of schools. And so to get into those schools is expensive. Right? So in that vein, to get to that kind of end, it's not like I'll die without it. That's why I say I would say it's so strong. Knowing the kind of ambition and the kind of risk I want to take, say, no, I can't fund 250,000 in total cost of attendance. There's no amount of savings I can do for that. Working in Ghana, there's no amount that you can do to prepare yourself for that, right? So, fine. What's the next best alternative? Yes, there's scholarships. Then we'll get to that aspect. Certain opportunities that come to you in life, you have to be extremely exceptional to get it free, but you have to pay for those kind of opportunities one way or the other, right? So that third criteria really is opportunity. It's to take an advantage of an opportunity you can't. I compare with me coming from Ghana, and whenever we are filling these forms, whether it's for visa or school applications, and you have to put your annual salary that you've been earning for since you started working, and you put it in dollars, you see it's a pittance. it's a pittance, you know. You try to see, "Charlie, which bonus can I add? Which allowances can I add to increase this number, because the number is too tiny." Yeah, and so you realize that you can't save. But people in the US, you take people in the US, we have Ghanaians in the diaspora who are already living abroad, working abroad, and have a certain level of income. They stand a chance to save up. They stand a chance to bankroll it. I have a classmate. She also graduated the MBA with me. I kid you not. She cash flowed her whole MBA. Maybe towards the end, she got some help from her family, but she cash flowed it. Why? Because she finished school. This is actually her second master. She had to do a first master's professional because she's in healthcare, and she was working many hours. She had at least 2 jobs all the time, working extra, making a lot of money, stacking up cash. So when it was time to pay for school, she could bankroll it. And while we were in school, she was still doing some work remotely, to still bring in some ching, So there's that opportunity. But if you are coming from Ghana going to the US, can you really cash flow that? No. If you are in Ghana going to do a master's in University of Ghana, possibly you can cash flow it. There's that possibility. All right. So it's all about context. If that door won't open for you unless you take that loan, and that endeavor is a good one, it's really important to your career. Like I'm sitting here, yes, I have close to $200,000 in student loans, but I'm looking at the kind of job I have, and I know I'll pay it off in a few years. In a few years, and it's already one of my targets. Hit a portion of that is 25% of my debts this year. So that's already one of the targets we've discussed, right? At least it gives me that cushion. So people need to think about it. Is the goal a good endeavor to pursue? Then it's a cost you have to bear. Okay, great. I'm not. There's this Bible verse that Dave Ramsey quote, and I should have looked up the exact verse. Maybe Dennis, you can help us with this. But it says the borrower is slave to the lender. Now we are just talking about debt in general, whether debt is good or not. The borrower is slave to the lender. Adam, what do you think about this? And Dennis, please look at that very specific verse for us.
It's Proverbs 22:7.
Proverbs chapter 22 verse 7. Wonderful. Yeah, good. Dennis, please type it in there for us if you can. Yeah. So
did you get it? 22 verse. So okay, my opinion about it. Oh yeah, it says that the borrower is slave to the lender, and I think in the general sense of it, I mean, we see it so much in a lot of examples that play out. Even if you look at, for example, our country as Ghana, that has borrowed itself to the limit. Now we are at the how do they call it? The mercy of what they call the creditor committee that they have set up. They've been going back and forth. The negotiations have been tough because we can't pay, and we need them to give us some grace so that we can at least breathe. So you see that's quotation tells us that kind of relationship when especially we go into debt, because until you've paid it off, there's this weight that is always on you. And so that is what I get from the verse when it says that the borrower is slave to the lender. Whoever gives out to someone, even if you've just borrowed something from somebody before, you know how it feels. Like sometimes even if they call you, even concerning something else, then you sort of feel that maybe it's because of the money that you have borrowed from them. That's why they are calling you. And so sometimes it even makes relationships awkward, especially if it is between friends or something. So yeah, so I think of course it's in the Bible, so I go with that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. It's even they call you, then you make busy. You just like tell you what's going on here, and it has potential to ruin some relationships. So yeah, I think there are certain debts that you may need to take. Okay, you may need to buy a car, an affordable car. You take on a loan, and then you pay it off as soon as possible. You want to buy a house. Oh, another criteria that I could have given for debt is to reduce, if it's something that will help you reduce a cost, like real estate, like housing, buying your own home, right? Or paying for your home. If you realize that your rent, you feel like you're throwing all your money away, and you can get a mortgage to replace that payment, and a significant chunk of that mortgage will be going towards paying down your house. That's also something that's worthy. But yeah, you would feel the pressure. And it's even worse when it's consumer loans. Like consumer loans, there's no asset to back it. Like student loans, there's really no asset. You are the human being is the asset. You go to work and you get a salary and you pay the bank. If it's a house, the house is the asset. If push comes to shove, you sell the house, give them their money, you take the remainder, you are gone your way. Same thing with the car. All right. So we also need to keep that in mind as we are thinking about debt. Okay. So another aspect of taking loans before we get even further into the student loan thing is how we feel about spending when it's on credit. Like you're going to buy a bag or you're going to buy an iPhone. I know there were some times that people used to do this, especially when I was in a financial institution. People always come, oh, you can buy this and pay it off over 6 months. Now, if you're paying off cash, let's say you want to buy an iPhone, you want to pay it off cash. Maybe you go for last year or last 3 years model. But if you spread it over, then you realize that the monthly payments, it doesn't hit you too hard. So you know what? I'll increase my spec one more time, one notch. You understand? In a student loan thing, you think, oh well, I guess looking at the schools that I can afford, if I'm going to take a loan, then I'll just go for a more expensive school. After all, I'll take some time to pay. And if you are smoothing it over an extra $100 a month or $200 a month, it's okay. It's all right. But you add that up over, usually the tenor is like 10, 15, 20 years, right? That money adds up. So it's something that we really need to think about. Adam, have you ever been in a situation, or do you know of any experiences people have had where they ended up spending more money just because they weren't paying it out with their cash and feeling it?
Oh yeah. Even the student loan situation, like those days on campus, there was people had this notion as if it was some free money that maybe government was giving them. This loan nabo, then they are happy around on campus, and then you realize that the next thing you see how they are spending, and you ask yourself whether these people really sure that do they really know what they are doing and what this thing can lead to. So even when you borrow from people to use to sort out certain things, sometimes you forget yourself, and you when you are spending it, you don't feel it. There's something about when you are spending your own money, or when you start making your own money. Even if you look at it from when we were children or young people in school, and our parents, when they send us money, within a short time we are calling back home again, and then we are asking for something more. Because it's not you that you are making. Like you don't feel it, but the moment when you are spending your money, the dynamic changes. And I think from listening, even on the shows, they talk about a research or some kind of studies that have shown that what happens in the mind when you are paying with your own money and when you are using borrowed money. I don't know the research, but I think we can check it out and then put it out there. So. I know it's real, because even myself, I feel it. I've felt it because I've borrowed from people before. And when you are spending that money, it feels different. But it is when it's time to pay that it's a whole different ballgame.
That's when it start feeling you start feeling it properly.
Exactly. Yeah. So and I think it's one of the reasons why people can come to you when they are coming to borrow. They all have all the good intentions, and they say all the right things to collect the money from you. But then the moment they are gone, when it's time to pay back, it's a different thing. I think I'm beginning to understand it after hearing that there's research to show that when you are spending money that you have borrowed or you are using like a credit card, what goes through your mind compared to when you're using a debit card or you're paying cash for it. You see all those things happening and you realize that, okay, really, there's something going on in the mind. So at least me, I've seen it in my life and in the life of people around me. So I think there's something to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to even when I'm just imagining like buying a car. Let's say you've saved money, a certain amount of money that you can put as a down to buy a car. Let's assume in this day and age, maybe you've saved, looking at these car prices, it's crazy. You saved 80,000. 80,000. You've done very well. You saved 80,000 cedis to buy a car. But then your company can add another 80,000, bring it to 160,000. And for that 80,000, maybe you say, you know what, I'll just buy a Corolla, an old Corolla, maybe 08, 09, 2010, 2012 Corolla. That's if those prices I'm saying are even realistic, right? And you can manage it after all, it can get me from point A to point B. And then you heard that, they can double the money for you, add another 160 and go like, hey, I can get more recent, maybe a 2015, 2016, 17 Corolla. Okay, then let me go and do it. But meanwhile, you know that the extra that you are getting is just vibes, right? So when you are on your own money, there's a way you think. It's kind of like that same penny wise, pound foolish kind of mentality. Once you have to constrict yourself to a smaller budget, you think in a certain way. But when your budget expands, then it becomes a different thing. Now, there's another aspect. Like we are trying to get into, even before we get into the technicalities, we're trying to get into the psychology of this, of loans and student loans, right? Because a lot of the battle is not just technicals. It's when you are on your own making your decisions, it's a lot to do with your psychology. So bear with us as we build up to that point. Dennis, are you there? I have a question for you that I'm sure among us you would be more able to relate to. I find that when people pay for something, they're able to take it more seriously than when somebody else paid for it. And especially in the education space. When you were in school, did you see how the matured students were behaving on campus? No offense, but some of them were not the brightest of people, right? No offense to them. But grit is something that they had. Did you ever observe that? And I feel like it came from them spending their own money for this education compared to DB, that about sports children like Dennis whose parents are paying for their education. What's your take on this?
Yes, so even the classic example is you would see some difference in the seriousness between regular students during my time. The difference between regular students and distance students, because more of the distance students were working and then schooling at the same time, and some were funding their own education. When there's probably an extra class to do or maybe an extra seminar, you would see more of the distance students who are mature pulling up and the regular students just roaming about campus and all. So you could say that they had a different kind of seriousness when it came to the education, and primarily it was because most of them were funding their own education.
That's deep. And it's not just the level of maturity, but they know how hard they've had to work for that money. When people want to write an exam like the CFA, and I ask them, Charlie, this is a lot of money. It's $1,500 for just the first try. Are you sure you're ready to commit to it? You compare that to other things like other short courses, free courses that people do online, and a lot of people start and never finish those things. Yeah, so yeah, good catch, and good sharing your perspective or your observation on that, Dennis. Okay, so now let's bring it squarely to student loans. Around this time, we are talking in June. This time is when a lot of people who've gotten admission to schools are thinking through how they are preparing for their visa interviews, funding for school and all that. So hopefully if somebody is catching this right now, it's a good time for them to think about this. It's also a time for people who are thinking about going to school next year. The first round of applications usually end around August, September. So if you are planning on that, this is also a good time for you to be thinking well ahead of time. All right. And when people when people ask about school, a major question that comes up is, how will I finance it? Typically, when people talk to me about the school like Cornell, I'm saying, look, let's talk about financing it last. What's important is getting into the school. All right. It's not, and at first it comes across as, oh, the money is not that important. The money is important, but usually I've come to realize that the things that will get you into a school, the things that will make you a very good candidate for a school, are the things that would improve your chances at scholarship. A lot of schools bundle the school application with a scholarship application. So if you are looking good for the school, then chances are you'd also look good for the application. All right. And it's a good question that we should always ask. Anytime you are thinking about getting into school, you have to ask the right question. And I see that a lot of, at least, this is one thing that we Ghanaians, we do very well. It's expensive. Like, so how much is it going to cost? How will I fund it? There's a point to which it's a healthy question to ask. It becomes unhealthy when some people ask themselves this question and then they just shut down and say, I won't do it. No. There's a way out. Ask the question and do it. I take a school like Ashesi University. People in Ghana would say Ashesi is expensive. But a lot of people in Ashesi have some form of scholarship. I know many people who've gone to Ashesi for full tuition, sponsored, right? So it's possible. But when we get into the mindset of, oh, it's expensive, I don't even want to think about how I'll fund it, that's when we lose out on opportunities. So it's a good question to ask. Ask and find the answers. All right, great. Now, getting into the terms of loans, because again, people at this time are trying to delve into these loan applications and signing it, getting guarantor if necessary. People are looking at Empower, Prodigy, Discover loans, all these things. And even if it's Ghana, Adam mentioned the name. Adam, what's the name of the student loan in Ghana? And is it administered by SNET?
No, it used to be administered by SNET, but a different agency was set up. It's the Student Loan Trust.
Oh, okay.
And so it's the one that handles the student loan now. SNET, I think, provides some supporting now, but there's a trust that is set up by government. I think it's under the Ministry of Education. So it's the one that handles the student loans now for tertiary students. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. One less headache for SNET. Okay. All right, great. So you're thinking about all these things. There are certain terms that you come across, and you need to understand these things before you get into the student loans. I think a lot of people not understanding this gets them into trouble. Like, if you don't understand the terms of the loan and you're trying to go abroad and you go and say the wrong thing at the visa interview, they go like, oh, what's going on here? You know what? Nah, I'm not going to give you the loan, because they just go and say they're not going to give you the visa because you don't understand the product that you signed up for. You don't understand the implications. So you need to understand the terms. So let's see, what are some of the terms that people need to understand, or what are some of the conditions that people need to get into? Adam, you want to give us some rapid fire of a few?
Okay, so I think one of the main things is, so the interest rates, I mean, that's a basic thing you should know. What interest is it being given to you? Okay, and then you have to understand how the interest works. Does it kick in immediately? Is there a moratorium? Is there a period, or how is there? I'm saying so many things at the same time. But okay, so is there a moratorium on like, is there a period within which you have some breather until you start to pay back? And how does it work? You know, all those questions you need to ask yourself. So, the repayment period, does it start immediately? What are the modalities of repaying? And asking yourselves, even what happens if you should miss a payment? All those questions are important, and you need to ask those things. I think I'll leave the rest for you, Elikim, to talk about.
Sure. And like, what can happen if you miss a payment? If you miss a certain number of payments, it's possible they'll say, hey, look, we're calling back the entire thing. Give us all our money. You know, those terms can be in there. It seems like a long, bulky document. I remember my loan document was around 27 pages. I read every single page before I signed it. I'm like, yo, that particular loan, I've never taken a loan of 166,000 before dollars. I'll read every page before I sign it. Took me 2-3 days to get through it because I was working and all that. So I eventually signed it. I know many people were like, "Oh, I just got it, and I just wanted to go through the process fast, and I just signed it." One person who rushed like that and didn't understand it and went to say the wrong thing somewhere. I think it was part of an issue that the person got eventually, but you need to understand these things very well. Yeah, pardon me. Yeah. So, also like some of the some of the companies, let's take Empower, for example, they give student loans to international students. They would ask you to pay your interest portion while you are in school. So that has to come out. And for me, I think my Empower balance is around, is it 8,000 or so? And so every month I get charged about $82. The bigger loan, the 180 something, that one, there's a moratorium. I don't have to pay anything until 6 months after graduation. So 5 plus is 11. So around November, then that one I'll have to start, that one kicking in. But then there's also something you should check, the terms. Some of the terms are over many years to ask, okay, this is the interest rate. Can you shop around, right? Can you get a better loan? Usually from where we are coming from in Ghana, you don't have too many options. The popular ones are Empower and the Prodigy, if they will even take you. And then those who have family or friends who can guarantee for them, there's Discover. Discover has good terms. So if you have these 3 options, then you can choose. And sometimes the schools can help you make sure that you choose the most when they are collecting the money, they will start counting from the least expensive loan. They'll max out the least expensive loan before they go to a more expensive loan. So you could have gotten approval from many options, but they only need a portion at a time. They'll start drawing down from where it's cheapest for you. Some schools will help you with that to make sure that you are looking out for these things to put you in a good footing. And then you shop around, you get the interest. Even after university, after you graduate, you need to check the interest rate because a lot of these loans are floating. Empower was fixed rates, but my main one for tuition was floating. And when I started, when I was applying in 2022, interest rates were around 6.5%, 6.49 to be exact. Right now it's around 13%. So very soon, once I start working, I'm going to get that refinance. Like the interest rate has more than doubled. And to give you context on such a large amount, my monthly interest on about $180,000 is close to $1,500 a month. So imagine if I can cut that down by half. That will bring it down to around 700. So that's something that you need to be thinking about. So if you're already in school, start thinking about SOFI, SOFI, or Y refi. That's YREFI. Preference would be for Y refi because Dave Ramsey says so. And he says good things about it. So those options are there for you. You can always refinance to get a better deal. It's not one and done. Okay. So don't make this thing become an albatross around your neck. Pay it down fast. Also ask about the, prepayment terms. Another term and condition you need to find out. If you choose to pay off your loan ahead of time, what does it entail? Will there be penalties? You'd want to go with a situation where there are no penalties. And again, you may not have so much of a choice. So it's just about knowing so that you can position yourself. If you make payments, will it pay down your principal? Yes, no. Something you should also know about the interest. For the institutions that allow you to not pay interest while you're in school, what happens is every month they add that interest to your principal. They add the interest to your principal. So even though I borrowed 166,000, and over time, every semester it's like 43,000 or so that adds up until the final semester it became 160 something. But the interest every month comes to add on to the principal. So this is where some people feel like, oh, I borrowed only this amount, but now it's ballooned to a certain point, and they start feeling bad. They think the banks have cheated them. No, understand that you've taken somebody's money. Until you pay them back their money, they're going to charge you interest. So the interest, they'll keep charging interest on that interest, on that interest, on that interest, on that interest. Just as we talk about compounding interest, and when you're investing, you need your money invested so that you can get compounding interest on and on and on and on. It works the same way with loans. So until you start paying down, they'll keep adding on the interest. All right. So, yeah, it's no one is cheating you when that happens. Just know that your principal balance will keep adding up until you get to a point where you can pay down. So check with them. If you send extra payments every month when it's time to start paying, what's going to happen? Are they going to take out the interest portion first? How's that going to work out? Okay. Yeah. And again, these terms and conditions, some may be new to you. I could read those many pages, 27 pages of loan terminology because that's my work, right? I understand finance. You may not. What you do is read it on your own, highlight certain things you don't understand. Guess what? There's ChatGPT, and I see my boss over there who is still being stubborn. Boss is still being stubborn, not checking ChatGPT out. But anyway, these terms, you can go put it in there, ask ChatGPT, and they will answer the questions for you. And then you can just check with another person. I'm sure everybody has somebody, a friend or family who is in finance. Well, I read my loan term. If you ask them to read the entire 27-page document, boss, by the time you graduate, you need to have had the time to finish reading it. So when you read it out on your own and you can't figure certain things out, then you can go to them and then they can give you better perspective. But don't do this on your own, right? And so that even gets me to my next question. Is, are we looking at all these terms and all the things that go into student loans? Do we feel like we are equipped to make these decisions on our own? All right. Some of us have younger siblings who are finishing high school, and they are thinking about going to university abroad, college abroad. Can a 16, 17, 18-year-old really be making these decisions on their own? No. Even you, 25, you finish your undergrad, or you finish your national service, or you finish the master's, or at some point in your career, are you equipped? No, maybe not 100%. So how can we equip ourselves to make these decisions properly? Adam, do you have any thoughts on how we can make such good decisions?
So at least this is a start. As we are having this discussion, it's a start where people can make those, we can be hearing about these things so that we can, when we are faced, our younger siblings or ourselves or other people close to us are faced with those decisions, we are able to be equipped enough to know even where to look out for. Even in your case, you have read the whole document too. I know many people who took student loans who didn't even read Jack. They just filled their application forms and then they submitted. And because all they know is that, they say we should fill this form and then we've signed it and then I'll get my money. That's all they were thinking about. It was just the end goal. But a lot of people were surprised when the thing about interest on interest. A lot of people don't know that thing applies because there's a moratorium. And then they finish and they're like, no, I just got maybe 4,000 cedis or 5,000 cedis. And now my balance is saying maybe 6,000. Of course, it was earning interest. So people don't know these things. So one of the ways as we are talking about these things, we are educating ourselves. At least some people will come and tune in later, they will listen. They are also learning and will benefit. And those around us too, we can talk to them and encourage them. Then it's very important that we speak to professionals all the time when we are taking since joining many convos and then also listening around, I've realized how we, especially here in our part of the world, how it's like, Charlie, we are just walking by faith and vibes. So, and inshallah, because a lot of decisions that
we have
I tell you, a lot of decisions that we take and a lot of transactions we enter into without any expert opinion. Myself included, I've done some silly things. Like now when I look back, I say, whoa. You were walking on tenterhooks, like you were really walking into the lion's den. So we really need to take professionals seriously for what they are and not look down. Somebody has spent his some good time of his life studying and knowing. Like, you see how you're breaking down the things about the terms of the loan and things. Me, I didn't do that thing in school. So if I'm going to take up a student loan like that, I should speak to an expert who can explain what it means. You see, most of the time, people are not aware of what it means, and that's one of the biggest problems. It's not even about the taking of the loan in itself, but because they don't know what they have signed up for, it ends up, they don't really realize what their obligations are. Do you know what it means to take a loan and having to pay $1,500 every month in addition to some other thing? Like, when you have that, there's a certain sense of urgency that you will have when you are working and going to work. You will not be turning up to work late. You will not, because you have all these bills to pay, So if we can understand what it means by speaking to professionals who will explain to us, then we would know. They can break down the terms to us. And before we put our signature on any of these documents, because they are legally binding, and we don't find ourselves in a situation where we are drowned by debt and we don't know where to turn. So it's important to speak to professionals, let them explain. I would most likely say, just to wrap up, to say that most of the time, when I say speak to the professionals, like, go talk to people outside of where you are going to seek for the thing, not someone who is ready to sell you a product. Just go talk to a professional, somebody who does not really have a direct interest in what is going on, so they can at least give you a very objective opinion about the terms of what you are going into. Then that way, that when I have signed up for this, or you can actually now take a different decision and say, okay, no, I don't think this is good enough for me. Let me look for another opportunity or another option or another way. Or, you know what, the school cry is not important again. Let me do something else. Let me go and sell something. Then you can make informed decisions. So speak to professionals, I beg. Yeah, that is what I would say.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. And speaking to people who don't have an interest in that particular decision, like Adam said, is important. And that's why we are here at Money Convos, right? We offer financial information with no strings attached, because we realize that quite often, whenever we hear about investment and money, it's from a financial institution that's trying to sell something to you. And so over here, we're not trying to sell anything to you. We just want you to be better off. We want to see ourselves better off in 5 years. We want to see you better off in 5 years. Everybody being better off. That means, the whole world gets better. So that's what we are trying to do. And another group of people who are really interested in your well-being, who you could go talk to, are your investment friends. So get on Instagram, look up at investment_friend. It's no more just here, where we are just talking among ourselves, like me, Adam, Dennis, in the squad. We're just having a chat. But there, it's you joining a community and even having a one-on-one session with Mimi, Seram, to talk about your personal situation. And you can get direct answers beyond the generic ones and the averages that we are talking about. Something more specific towards you. So get on Instagram. Before you get distracted, quickly search for @investment_friend. Join that community. The community does a lot of things actively together, savings, challenges, a whole lot of things. Heck, I'm pretty sure one of these days we'll come up with a get out of debt challenge. You know what, Adam? Dennis, let's suggest it to them. Let's suggest it. Cause this will be a good one. Assess the situation of people and their debts and come up with a plan to get people out of debt. And this topic about debt is important, because when we look at the steps people should take to build wealth, looking at different sources that we've looked at. I remember some years ago when we read the book, Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, the author suggested 3 first steps. First, pay off all your debts. Second, build an emergency fund. Third, max out your retirement contribution. All right. And yes, we've discussed earlier on, there are certain debts that you would have to take. You don't have much of an option, like a mortgage. If you want to reduce the cost of your rent and start building equity into something, a mortgage, right? Or if you're building a house, get a personal loan to quickly finish off the roof or something, all right? Those ones are there. You've taken it on, no problem. Pay it off as soon as possible. So that's something that I think will be a good challenge for us to take on with people. And for me personally, one of my two goals for the year, pay off a quarter of my student loans this year. So fingers crossed, start working, I guess. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so keeping it moving. And at this point, starting to wrap up, we're going to get tactical. So what should you do? What should you do? Now you've gotten this much information about student loans. What should you do? I'm not saying don't go to school, right? We are saying that the decision about school is not just about the financing. It starts from what do you want to do? And I'll digress a little because it's not just about loans. It's about going to school. Many of us know the reasons why we are going to school. Some of us just to gain knowledge. Some of us, me like this, to prove that I can rap through this with the best of the best. And also to get rich while I'm at it. Some people, it's an avenue to Japan. Some things I can't explain that too much. If you know, you know. You need to think about life beyond school. People tend to think about school as a destination. And I get it. When we were being raised in Ghana, it was all about, what school are you going to do? What program are you going to do? But it's just a tool. I tell people that the MBA program is really just a fancy recruitment agency, especially the top schools. They get the best of people and put them in the best of jobs. Really, it's a recruiting agency. If they don't do that, people won't come. Why should we take on this much money if you're not going to get a good return on our investment? So see it the same way. Think about what kind of career do you want to have or continue to have beyond school? What kind of money would I be making after I get into that job? And out of that money that I'm making, I'll need to set aside a portion to be paying off the loan, right? So that means I need to care about the cost of that schooling. How can I put myself in a position to max out the scholarship for that? Get as much scholarship as possible, and then get the best of terms for the loan if you have to take any on the back end, right? So it's really about positioning yourself well. And so you also need to think, okay, what's the right program? What's the right school? You need to hit the right balance of the best school and program that you can attend that will get you your career goals at the cheapest rate to you, at the cheapest cost to you. So if you look at, let me use MBA because I'm familiar with that. Any school, any kind of program you want to do, I'm sure there are some rankings, but with MBA, the rankings are popular, done by FT News and that's Financial Times, and the US News. They do rankings. I think Poets and Quants may also do a ranking. There are schools, there's a top 10, I attended the top 10 school. There are the top 15, top 20, and there are other schools, top 30. When the number becomes big, you can't really say top anyway. So there are, let's just say, top tier, middle tier, lower tier kind of schools, right? Someone would get into some of these top tier schools, and with those schools, they issue their employment reports and say on the average, people coming out of these schools and let's say 150,000. So when you look at the student loans that you are taking, let's say the cost of attendance is 250,000 to these schools, 200 to 250. I'm not just talking tuition. Tuition may just be 160, 180, but you have to pay rent, you have to transport yourself there, you have to feed yourself, all that. So total cost of attendance, right? Health insurance and all that. You ask yourself, if I'm going to pay a total of 200,000, let's say 200,000, and the job I'm going to get is 150K on the average. Some people will be below, some people will be above. So that one too is your wildness. And some people may not even get a job through immediately. There's some risk to this. But story for another day. You have to ask yourself, then I'm earning 200,000 after tax and I save a certain amount of money. If I know that the average person in the US is earning, let's say 70,000 a year. If I live on that, that will leave me with an extra 50,000 a year that I can aggressively pay down my loan. So in 4 years, I can pay it off. Okay, that makes sense. That's how you should be looking at the math. My life beyond it, what's my budget going to be looking like? What's my disposable income going to be? How much of it can I set aside towards paying this loan aggressively? I would tell people, try to shoot for paying it off within 3 to 4 years. Less than 3 years if possible. And I attended a school, total cost of attendance around 250,000, fine. Some people, I have a friend, number one hustler, I know, man. Derek is a hustler. His school, I think total cost of attendance maybe 80,000 to 100,000, right? And he's coming out with a job around 100,000, right? So that's something that he can pay it off in 2 years if he's aggressive about it. So that's something you should do. I'm trying to show you how you should do the math, okay? Think about the cost that you are getting yourself into, and on the back end, how much disposable income are you going to get? And of course, the program that you're going to do, it's about, okay, if I'm going to do IT or communications or a master's in communications, like what are those kind of people? What salaries are they earning? If they are earning 80,000 and your school is going to cost 100,000, some way, you really have to work the math well. But if the school is going to cost you 20, 30,000 and they are earning 80,000, hey, I like that ratio, So rule of thumb is 1.5x. If your salary is going to be 1.5x, that's good, and then you can strive to be on the top tier of the income earners. I hope this is making sense. Let me just do a quick lay person's check. Adam, Dennis, like the way I explained it, does it make sense?
Oh yes, it does.
Okay, cool. All right. So just make sure that you're gonna be pay it off within 2-3 years. Another thing about school selection too is that when you're selecting a school, I said that the important thing is making sure that you're the best possible candidate. Okay. If you have to take any entrance exam, GRE, GMAT, ACIT, at this point, perhaps you can't change your undergrad GPA. If you're in school and you're listening to this, you're in undergrad, please, first class matters, okay? It's not just first class. In University of Ghana, when I was there, 3.6 can get you a first class. 3.9 can also get you a first class. Go for 3.9, okay? All right, so try to get that, okay? That's Douglas getting 3.97. Those people saw. Mm-hmm. Shoot to max out all your numbers on paper, because chances are a lot of the scholarships are going to be merit-based. Merit means how good you are. I was just reviewing a classmate's scholarship, and I kid you not, one of this guy's a clown. That's the nicest way I can put it. This guy is a clown. You would not think this guy is serious. And I look at his resume, and he had a GMAT of 760. For those who know, like max score for GMAT is 800. To get into the very good schools, average is like, you should be getting like 720. This guy got 760. Okay. And he got full tuition scholarship. I'm like, I wouldn't see this guy. If anyone had told me he had full school, right, I would not get it. I would not understand it until I saw the GMAT score. A lot of times people will tell you, it doesn't really matter. It's just vibes. Do the best possible you can. That way, you see, the way the schools work is they also put out the statistics. It's a recruiting agency, like I told you. So they want to make sure that they are getting the best people in. It's like Wesley girls in Ghana. They get the best students from junior. And it's easy to send those people to get straight A's in the senior high school exam, the WASI, right? You're going to get some people in now. You're going to have to put in so much effort to transform them into top stars some way. So why not get the best people? So there will be a school that may be a mid-tier school. They can still get you a good enough job. It may not pay 150,000, may not pay 200,000, it may just pay 100,000 or 80,000 or 90,000. But you still get a job, a good job, comfortable job. All right. And it can get you there. But they will say that, look, you are so amazing that they would be willing to give you a lot more scholarship, maybe full tuition for you to come there. Whereas another school like maybe Cornell or MIT or Columbia or NYU, they will say, we are just around the average here, so we may not even give you any money. So why not go on with the school that will give you more money and still get the work done? And over time, when you come out of school, your hard work, your networking can help you rise up the ranks. Look, I'm sitting here, 200,000 in notes. I kid you not. It's a bit of a burden. Of course, I have the income to back it up, and I'll be fine, and can pay it off in 2 years. It's fine, right? But there are people who are starting life off with 20,000 in debt. Some people with 0 in debt. Now, I have to wait 2 years to buy a Benz. I have to wait 2-3 years to buy that my dream Benz that you people know I've been talking about for the last 2-3 years of money convos. It's a joke. You understand? I can't start living that good life. These are some of the differences. And I kid you not, if I had a chance to rewind the clock, I had 660. I'm being very transparent because it's some type of way, but I really want to educate people about the realities going on. If I could feel the way I'm feeling right now, before I wrote the exam in 2021, the GMAT twice, that I got the same score. I kid you not, I would have been more gingered. I'd have been way more gingered to get a way higher score, to give me more school options, more negotiating power, more scholarship options. Because the better a candidate you are, the more schools will take you. And then when you get multiple schools taking you, then you can go to school A and say, yeah, look, I really want to come to you guys, but you've only given me 20,000. This other school wants me. They are giving me 50,000. So what's up? Then they can match it. Or they can increase it a little. And people say, oh, they increase it just by 5,000. Bro, me, I'm sitting here. When's the last time somebody dashed you $5,000? I don't know. I'll take it. $5,000 to me right now is how many months of rent? 2.5 months of rent. Okay. I'll take it. So what's up? So anyway, I just went on a long monologue to try to put you in the headspace of somebody who is in that kind of space right now. And I know comfortably, like even without bonuses, I can pay it off aggressively in 2 years. All right. And that brings it to the next part. Remember when we were talking about the baby steps or foundations to building wealth? Should you be investing when you've borrowed money for student loans or when you have debt, any form of debt? Let's say apart from mortgage, should you be investing? Adam, this one, you give us the answer before I get into the details.
I think your priority should always be to pay off loans because, I don't know, most of the time if you compare interest that you will receive from investing as against what you'll be paying on a debt, you see that your income from investing will be lower. The interest rates will definitely be lower compared to what you pay as debt. So definitely it makes sense to pay off debt first. And also that also helps you to get rid of it quickly and faster so that you can now come and concentrate on investing proper.
Yeah, boom. So thank you, Adam, for that. Right. There's the numbers aspect of it and there's the psychology aspect of it. The numbers aspect, I actually did the modeling. So me and Eden, we binge on Dave Ramsey's show. If you've not listened to it, just look up on YouTube, Dave Ramsey show highlights. That one, at least you don't have to listen to 2 hours at a time. That can be like 3 to 7 minutes or maybe 10 minutes at a time. All right. And hear people's stories and the kind of solutions they offer them. It keeps saying pay off the debt, but I'm a finance guy. My loan, let's assume I'm taking a loan and it's just 6.5%, but I can invest at 10%. Isn't there a difference? Like I'm getting that extra 3.5%. My money is growing faster than it's going down. So what's up? It's like taking somebody's money and going to invest it and getting extra money. That's profit, right? But I actually modeled it. I used to be in wealth management, so that was what I used to do for people. So somebody comes to me and say, okay, this is the plan for your portfolio. We're going to make these investments. This is how much return. This is what hopefully you can make in X number of years, and they get a buy-in into the portfolio. So why not do it for myself, right? I looked at the numbers and I realized that actually, if you pay off your debt before you start investing, you free up your money earlier. Now remember, when you have loans and you are paying it off, a portion of that money goes as interest. And you're not getting it back. But when you've paid off your loan, every month your salary comes, it's all yours to invest. So when you delay investing, say, oh, but I can't invest, maybe even retirement, like you're not putting money away for retirement, it's just for a temporary season. You have 30 or so years of working life later coming up. In the beginning part, you take yourself out of this burden so that you can release that money to yourself. And when you pay off your debts, when you start paying off the smallest first, eventually you get more and more money that you can start investing. And I work the numbers and frankly, you'll be better off. You end up with a higher net worth in the long run if you pay off your debts faster. So I actually worked the math and I realized that it's true. Now on the psychology part of it, it puts your mind into a certain aggressive mindset. There are people who have loans and they just know, it's fine. They take out the money every month and it's all good. But when you know you have to work aggressively to pay it, your discretionary expenditure comes down. Like 2025, I'm wondering if I'll come to Ghana because that's money. You get me? So you become more bottom tight. This year, I've been quite frugal. Because I know I want to pay off this money. So while I'm in school, I want to keep as much money as I can so that by the end of the year, I'll have enough money to reach my goal. And when you have aggressive goals, when you set aggressive goals for yourself, you are able to do more things. You see more opportunities to make more money. You work even harder. And when you work harder, you're more likely to get promotions. You're more likely to get better bonuses. You're more likely to sharpen your skills faster. The results may not come immediately, but in the long run, you are better. Like we hear people in the Ramsey show, they come and talk about how they are debt free, and their incomes usually increase over the period. They still finding money where they wouldn't have thought there's money. They look at their budgets and they go like, no, I'm wasting money. Why do I have 5 subscriptions when I can have just 2? You find money in all sorts of places. You go over your statements, like in January, I realized that I once went to a car wash and they told me I can pay what, $20 or $25 for a car wash and I can come unlimited times every month. And I thought, and it was a promo, I thought it was just a 1-month thing. Now, because I'm like, hard on the budgets, I checked every single line. And I realized that they've been taking $25 for an extra 3 months. Oh, that shouldn't be, right? And all these things, they come from you being diligent and setting aggressive goals for yourself to pay off the debt. These are some of the benefits you get. And when you go through that struggle, remember when we were talking about spending your own money versus money that you borrow, you become more conscious about your money. So when you're going to spend money on something, you say, nah, you know what? I worked too damn hard for this money to throw it away. You become more frugal. You spend your money more deliberately. Not that you just be buying cheap things, but sometimes you even get to a point, you know what? I'll spend more money to buy something quality that will last me longer. I'm just taking the easy option to just buy something cheap and then I have to keep replacing it over and over again. So those 2 benefits, the numbers aspect, you will win by paying it off early. Model it out. It's not just your interest, your investment return minus your cost of your loan. No. In fact, if you look at it that way, one of my classmates put it in a very good way. He said, wait, you want me to invest? You want me to invest instead of paying down my loan? But whenever I pay down my loan, I instantly get a return of, let's say, 9% because my loan cost is 9%. I instantly get a return. Interest I'm not paying back. I'm not paying. I just get that money back. No, that's another way to look at it. And then there's the behavioral part, the psychology part. It frees you up and it prepares you to be more aggressive and more disciplined to tackle on wealth and life. All right. So yeah, it's a faster way to get there. It may seem slow, but it's a faster way to get there. When people are going on trips, you go like, you know what? Nah, I'll wait. So when it's time for you to go on trips, you do it and you don't do it on credit. You put it on a credit card. And then what does Dave Ramsey say? He said what? Live like
no one else so that you can live like no one else.
Exactly. So yeah, to all my fellow Ghanaians who are abroad taking off student loans or those about to start school this fall, you're thinking about your loans, I challenge you, get campus jobs while you're in school. Get campus jobs. Try to get things on discounts. Don't always try to get a cheaper way of doing things that'll get the work still done. Pay off your loans as soon as possible, 2 to 3 years, and you'll be better off. And then the rest, after that, the world is at your doorstep. You understand? Okay. So that was the first, that pretty much summarizes, that pretty much was the whole spiel about what you should do. I'll just quickly summarize, then we can take any thoughts, or Dennis, any thoughts that you may have on this issue about student loans. So in terms of solutions, I encourage you, as you're thinking about school, make sure that it's the right decision that you're going to make. Think about whether that you need this particular education at this education to get you the career you want. If it won't, please don't do it. If it's just a short course can get you there, great. If networking can get you the job you want, great. But make sure it's really the only way to get it done, to make you successful. Next thing is, assuming you've realized that that's what you need to do, what is the best program in school you can get into at the lowest possible cost, if even free? And how do you get that done? You choose your schools wisely. You don't necessarily have to go to the most expensive school. You don't necessarily have to go to the best of schools, because I can assure you, these Ivy League schools, no one gives you those life-changing, generation-changing opportunities for free. So you need to understand what you're getting yourself into. Choose your schools wisely. And next, be the best possible candidate for those schools. If you have to take test scores, max out on those. Write the best essays you've ever gotten. Let ChatGPT help you. Let people who've gone through those programs help you write the right essays. All right. Let your work experience be good. Right now, as you're thinking about school, Think about your leadership experiences at work. Think about your volunteer activities at work. If you don't have any volunteer activities, come and help out Money Convos. Shameless plug. Anyway, make yourself the best candidate, because the metrics for being the best candidate are very often the same metrics to get you the best of scholarships. Now, you get those scholarships, you reduce how much you're going to have to pay out of pocket. Now, with the student loans, make sure you understand all the terms. Understand all the terms and pay it off as soon as possible. 2 to 3 years. Make sure that the kind of career that you can get after is something that your disposable income will be able to pay it off within 2 to 3 years. If the math, you're not sure about how to do the math, this is where we here at Money Convos, and especially at Investment Friend on Instagram, at investment_friend, we are willing to help you think through these things. So hit us up, send us a message, especially at investment_friend, and we'll be willing to help you one-on-one with these things. All right. I hope that's a wrap and everybody gets it. Adam, any closing thoughts for us? And then it will come to you too.
Yeah, I think just like on the way you ended, just ask yourself the questions that are necessary to ask. And then, especially if you have convinced yourself that it's something you need to do and you're going to sign on to anything, just make sure you have run it by some people who are professionals, who can actually put in a very good input in what you are doing. Don't sign off on something you don't understand. Know what you are getting into so that you will not be surprised going forward. And then, sure, once you finish, then you approach it with gazelle intention or gazelle activities, and make sure that you clear it off as quickly as possible so that you are free of any debt, and then you can live a happy life and invest as you move along. Yeah. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Gazelle intensity. Let's get this. If it's a necessary evil, let me call it that, a necessary debt you have to take it, best of terms, pay it off as soon as possible. Gazelle intensity, great. Dennis, how about you? Especially as somebody who is out of school and you're thinking about your career, you're doing all the things that you need to do, the professional exams, all those things, you'll be thinking about a master's program. What are your thoughts to your mate?
So personally, I've also learned a lot from today. I'm in a good position because for me, I have this family here at Money Convos, and I have people ahead of me who are where I want to be. So I think the major thing I'm taking from here is that it takes a village. You would not know everything, and that's fine. You should learn to ask around, ask the right questions. If it comes to it that you have to take your student loans to fund your education, make sure you ask the right people, and if possible, you can DM us at Money Convos with any question you have about anything, and then we will respond. So I think today's conversation has been very fruitful, and you can play back the conversation whenever you can.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. So a message to the Gen Z peoples. Dennis is our resident Gen Z correspondent and chief producer, doing a bang on job. Lately, I've realized that the episodes get live on YouTube and podcasts the very next day. And that's actually also due to all the support we get. Shout out to Ben Adamwakon for the audio production. He's very professional, and we are looking forward to doing big things with him. All right, guys. Thank you all. Thank you, Adam, for bringing this up. It's been a very useful conversation. You know, when you first suggested it, I didn't think of how useful. I knew it to be useful, but just speaking and just putting myself back in that headspace, this is very important stuff, especially for young people. Very important stuff. So thank you very much for bringing this topic for us to discuss. Thank you, Nana Preku, Mr. Beckley, NAS, Sarah popped in there, Mimi popped in there. Thank you for everyone who tuned in live. And thank you for everyone who tunes in again later. We always come back to check. We always see that people listening afterwards. So thank you all for the support. Hope to catch you next week. Next week conversation, yes. Our chief economist correspondent has confirmed. He'll be here with us. So many things are going on with the city. So are going on. People don't understand that. Thought the city was doing okay. Till around 11, 12. Suddenly you went to 14, 15. As a friend of mine would say, all of a sudden, it's going up. So he's going to come explain to us what's going on and what we should do about it. So big ups to Courage. We'll be hearing from him next week. And so do make a point to meet us here again next week. Same time, 6:30 p.m. Thank you all for the time. Enjoy the rest of your week. Please make good decisions and get all the help you can. And we are here to support you. Bye.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our thoughts. I hope you learned a thing or two and start practicing. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook. And subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. Do tell a friend about Money Convos so we all become wealthy together. Talk to you soon. Bye.